A few months ago, I made a video called The Stages of a Terraria Player. It basically covers exactly what the title says it does, but I felt something missing after finishing it. This video is that something. I've recently noticed that outside of a couple tips and trick videos and a few playthrough guides, there aren't really any videos on how to become a full Terraria pro. I want to fix that. This video isn't so much a guide to playing Terraria, you can find that anywhere, but a guide on how to get good at it as fast as possible from the ground up. And if you're already a pro, feel free to keep watching and tell me what I got wrong in the comments. Obviously, Terraria has a lot of different ways to play, but today I'm mainly covering the base progression. Keep in mind that this playing style doesn't work for everyone, and I'm assuming that you already have decent prior gaming knowledge, but don't know too much about Terraria. This guide is also going to mainly cover PC, but you can translate it to console or mobile if you wish. Also, if there's certain stages to this video that you don't agree with, don't do them. One last thing, if you've already completed some of the stages this video covers, just skip to the one that most closely matches where you're at. Don't waste your time watching the whole video unless you want to. Let's get started. Like I just said, I'm assuming you don't have too much Terraria knowledge, so let me school you real quick. You most likely already know that Terraria is a 2D sandbox survival game, but if you're gonna play this, there's a few extra things you need to know before committing to it. This game is grindy. Basically, anytime I try to find someone to play this game with, all they complain about is the grind of the early and mid game, and you're gonna experience this as well. Whether it be mining, building NPC houses, boss arenas, or just trying to get that one rare drop, you're basically doomed to grind at some point. Thankfully, modded Terraria fixes a lot of these issues, so if you have the attention span of a fly and just want to murder bosses, I recommend playing with these quality of life mods. Vein Miner, so you don't have to spend too much time getting ores. Boss Checklist, so you don't have to spend time figuring out how to spawn bosses. Alchemist NPC Light, so you can just buy your way out of most of your problems. Instant Housing, so you can build New York apartments as fast as possible. Magic Storage, so you don't have to keep looking through your chest for everything. And Recipe Browser, so you don't have to go to the guide every time you want to craft something. You also should expect to die a lot while playing. This is certainly no Dark Souls game, but it's no walk in the park either. Also, maybe get a couple friends to join you. It makes the game a lot better. And now, let's start with Journey Mode? Yeah, I felt weird putting this in here because a lot of people don't see this as a respected difficulty in Terraria, but since PC doesn't have a tutorial, we're gonna make one. This will basically teach you all of the basic skills you need for the game without making things too hard, hopefully allowing you to progress a lot faster once we get to normal mode. Our main goal is going to be to defeat the Eye of Cthulhu. The main things we're playing on Journey Mode for is the item duplicator to help with grinding, the ability to change time and enemy spawn rates, along with God Mode. But I wouldn't recommend abusing that last one. The game gets pretty boring once you start doing that. I also made a small world for this tutorial because this shouldn't be a permanent world. And now we're just playing normal Terraria. I'm not going to go too in depth with the gameplay since I'm guessing you've already watched a couple guides to this game. Chop a couple trees down, fight a couple slimes, get some overworld loot, make sure to use your duplicator, and go caving. Now mine some iron or lead, silver or tungsten, and gold or platinum. Get a couple gold chests, die, and if you don't think you're ready yet, go back down with better gear, get more loot, and hopefully you have a suspicious looking eye by now. Now go to the surface and build a simple platform arena similar to this, and hopefully beat the Eye of Cthulhu. Congratulations, you are ready now. And it's time for normal mode. This is literally just going to be a playthrough of Terraria. Pretty simple if you know what you're doing, but I assume you don't yet. Go ahead and do everything that you just did in the tutorial, but this time with a few more deaths. Technically, you could just stick with the tutorial world, but more likely than not, eventually you'll end up using the cheats that the game gives you throughout your playthrough, so I don't recommend it. Keep in mind that the game gets a lot more fun after this. I also recommend building up some NPC housing throughout the early game, so when you defeat the Eye of Cthulhu again, you'll already have some good stuff to purchase. Pro tip, the merchant is basically a life hack for early game. Do not forget about him. And just like that, we're back to where we started. The nice thing about Terraria is that the gameplay loop is pretty simple, but it manages to stay fresh throughout the entire playthrough. Pretty much all this playthrough will be is prepare for boss, fight boss, beat boss, repeat. Like I said, this isn't a playthrough guide, so if you get stuck at certain parts, either use the wiki, a YouTube guide, or the boss checklist. And once you repeat this cycle enough, your first full playthrough should be finished. So now you probably want to go straight to expert mode, but hold your horses, soldier. Depending on how well you played in that last playthrough, it might actually be worth playing through the game again, but this time with a few tweaks to your gameplay, such as limiting yourself to a harder class, going potionless, no NPCs, just something like that. A way for you to challenge yourself while still keeping the game fresh. It's possible that during your first playthrough, you missed a couple bosses due to them either being too hard for you or you simply not knowing about them. Either way, this is the time to fight them. and throughout this playthrough, if you keep dying, feel free to just play normally again. This might seem pointless to do while you're playing, but if you do this now, you should hopefully have your skills refined enough so that expert mode won't be nearly as hard as it would be. And since you've already played normal mode once, this shouldn't take nearly as long as the first time. All I can say about expert mode is don't underestimate it. And here we are, moment of truth. You're either going to play this and absolutely hate it or think I grossly overhyped it. Either way, you're here now. This is the first actual step you're going to take to becoming good at Terraria. Just a personal experience of mine, but even after countless normal mode playthroughs on Terraria, it wasn't until I beat expert mode that I actually got good at this game. It's pretty likely you'll experience this too, so let's do it. Thanks to the reworked boss mechanics, your life is about to get a lot harder. The good news is that if you did the second normal mode playthrough, the extra mechanics should be all you have to learn. Lucky you. I also recommend getting some of those quality of life mods mentioned earlier at this time, mainly if you're starting to get bored. The grind only gets worse the harder you go. But if you're like me and enjoy the satisfaction of actually trying in a game, don't worry about it. But don't force yourself to be bored just because you think it's stupid to use mods. While yes, we're playing to get good, we're also playing to have fun. Anyways, expert mode finished. Now it's time to switch things up. Most likely, all you've been doing is playing normal Terraria, and although this game is certainly great, any game played multiple times over gets boring. So now it's time to either transition gameplay mods in, or play some secret seeds. Secret seeds are basically just developer-made custom seeds with their own quirks. Some are just made for the sake of existing, but some actually pose a decent challenge while still switching up the game and keeping it fun. I recommend playing Don't Dig Up or For the Worthy in expert mode, but there's also one more notoriously hard seed that you might know of. We're saving that one for later. Or if you go down the modded route, I cannot recommend Calamity enough. Not only are the bosses familiar to vanilla Terraria, so you don't have to worry about struggling too much, but especially in the late game, these bosses start to truly teach you how to use your character and skills to the max. Not only by dodging, but also with the massive variety of weapons and builds that are available. I have not met anyone that doesn't like this mod. Or if you still just want to play normal Terraria, you can just switch up expert mode again. Like I said earlier, you don't have to do everything I say throughout your playthroughs. But some people don't even want to go back to normal Terraria after experiencing mods, and if you do, it's time to try Master Mode. When I first switched from Expert to Master, I didn't really have any problems with it like I did with Normal to Expert. I assume this is because the bosses don't really get switched up too much, they're kinda just buffed versions of the Expert ones. Either way, after your experience with the Secret Seeds or modded Terraria, you probably won't have too many issues either. By now you're probably starting to feel really solid at this game, and that's great, no surprises there. Hopefully you don't have too many issues with Master Mode though, because now I want you to try the hardest vanilla difficulty possible. Legendary Mode was introduced along with the For the Worthy seed in the 1.4 update, but it also exists on the Get Fixed Boy seed, which is what you're going to be playing, a world that combines all the aspects of every other secret seed. Personally, I've only ever beat this world on Expert Mode, so this is kind of where I start using my general knowledge of Terraria as a base and not so much my actual experience. When you play this, you'll realize pretty quick that the gameplay and world design definitely isn't too player friendly, but this is actually a good thing. You want to start challenging yourself in new ways, since after this, you've basically conquered vanilla Terraria. Until Relogic decides to make Terraria 2, it's just modded Terraria from here on out, unless you play servers. Speaking of modded, hopefully you've gotten good Calamity experience before this, because that'll help you quite a bit here. A lot of these bosses are more bullet hell than anything, especially the Moonlord with its boulder attack and Medusa with its massive lasers. Anyways, now we're right back to Calamity, and it's time to make it hard. Calamity has a couple built-in difficulty modifiers, and we're going straight to the hardest one. Master Death Mode sounds pretty scary, and your fear of it would be justified. Although some of the bosses have less health in this version compared to Legendary, the major buffs to each vastly outweigh that slight nerf. This will no doubt be one of your hardest and most likely final tests of skill. If you make it through this, you've ascended past Pro. You're a master. But even masters have their limits. Masochist Mode is arguably the hardest beatable difficulty Terraria mods have to offer. Honestly, I don't know too much about this difficulty, so just look at a couple boss fights I stole from other YouTubers. Yeah, good luck. Let me just say real quick that I'm aware there are other ways to get good at Terraria besides playthrough after playthrough, but this is just the easiest to measure and the most common thing people do. I'm also aware that there's other mods that change difficulty, but when you're trying to crank out a video like this every 2 weeks, you don't really have time to look into everything. Feel free to tell me what I missed in the comments though. Anyways, later.